Good morning, girls. So, today we will begin the fifth unit, which is called as syntax. So, syntax is nothing but it talks about the rules and principles governing the arrangement of words into higher units. Okay, so that is what is actually syntax. Okay, it actually talks about what are the rules and regulations to be followed in order to arrange the words into higher units, higher units, meaning that into phrases, clauses, and sentences. So, what are the rules that we have to follow in order to arrange the words? To make it as a proper or grammatical sentence, that is called as syntax. Okay, and the next thing that you have to know about is what is grammar. So when you're talking about what is grammar, grammar is almost synonymous to that of syntax. So meaning that syntax is considered to be equal to that of grammar. And sometimes you can also tell that grammar consists of both syntax as well as morphology. Okay, so grammar, when we are dealing with grammar, it talks about two branches. So, one being syntax and the other being morphology. So, that is what is grammar. Okay, so when we are talking about the grammar study, so how can we study grammar? Again, we have two types of studying grammar. One is diachronical study and the other one is synchronical study. So these are the two approaches to the study of grammar. So as we have already seen these terms, no, I mean in unit 1, I think you will remember and you can understand what is the meaning of diachronically studying grammar and synchronically studying grammar. So diachronically studying grammar is nothing but studying grammar taking into consideration over a period. Okay, over a period, meaning that historical study of the changes that we can see in the grammar, over a period of time, that is diachronically studying grammar. So synchronically studying grammar is nothing but it studies grammar at a given period of time. I mean, it does not study grammar from a long period of time. It doesn't undergo any historical study of grammar. So, synchronical study of grammar just studies the grammar at a given point of time. Okay. So, whereas diachronical study of grammar, it studies over a period of time. Over a period of time, meaning that from the olden days till date. So that type of study is diachronical. When you are studying at a given period of time, that is called a synchronical study of grammar. So these are the two approaches to the study of grammar. So now to talk about the various study of grammar, no, as I have put up here, we will be starting with traditional grammar. Okay, so how grammar was studied years and centuries before. Okay, how what type of grammar was taught by the linguist over centuries before. Centuries before how the grammar was studied, that comes under traditional grammar. And the next one is structural or descriptive grammar. Okay, so after traditional grammar was in function, they found certain drawbacks in traditional grammar, and in order to just cover up all the drawbacks, they brought out structural or descriptive grammar. And third one is phrase structure grammar. Okay, so after this was into existence, again they found certain drawbacks in structural grammar, and after that they just made many researches and found the phrase structure grammar. And the last one is transformational generative grammar. Okay, so to cover up all the drawbacks in all the three things, that is the drawbacks in traditional grammar and structural grammar and phrase structure grammar, this last one, transformational generative grammar, was brought into existence in order to cover up all the drawbacks. So now we will start with the traditional grammar. So when we are talking about traditional grammar, this was actually followed especially by great writers like Ben Jonson. Okay, and where did they get this type of grammar? That which is termed as traditional grammar, is they got from classical language, okay, like Latin and Greek, especially the Latin language. They followed Latin language and they thought that this is since Latin language is a classical language, they can just copy the grammar of Latin language to that of English language. So this was the first step taken, and that is termed as traditional grammar. So whatever grammar was followed in Latin, everything was applied to English language, okay. But as the years went on, they found that this is ridiculous, no, to follow the Latin language grammar to that of English language. Since the two languages are different, linguists thought that it is totally failure to apply one language grammar to that of another language. And as a result, they found many, they just found many failings of traditional grammar. There were many drawbacks in traditional grammar, and it was just put up as points in the textbook also. If you want, you can check it. So the first drawback is Latinate fallacy. So what is actually Latinate fallacy is, they thought that Latin is superior. So Latin language is superior, so the English grammar should also follow the Latin. So this was actually termed as Latinate fallacy. Okay, so this is the first failure that is pointed out by the linguist. And the second one is semantic fallacy. Semantic meaning. Okay, so most of the definitions of the parts of speech was based on meaning. Okay, so how do we describe noun? Noun is a name of place, things, and everything. Okay, and when we are talking about verbs, it is nothing but action words. So all these are defined in terms of meaning. So when we are talking about certain other words in nouns like unity or love or freedom, so you cannot just apply the definition as given by the traditional grammar. Okay, in the same way, when we are talking about verb meaning action words. So coming to words like destruction or something like that, it is totally unused. The definition given by the traditional grammar cannot be applied. So all this again become a drawback in traditional grammar. Okay. And third one follows mixing up of different criteria. So mixing up of different criteria, meaning that in parts of speech itself, when we are talking about certain parts of speech are defined using meaning, and certain other parts of speech like adjectives are defined using the function. So how do we define noun? As we have seen earlier, it is a name of place or things, something like that. And how do we define adjective? Is it modifies the noun. Okay, and adverb meaning it modifies the verb. So the type of definition that was given by traditional grammar is something like mixing up of different criteria. Okay, they don't deal with the same criteria. So in the first one, they're talking about meaning, and the second one, they're talking about the function played by the parts of speech. So it is like mixing up. And next one, that is fourth one, is normative fallacy. Normative meaning that the norms of correctiveness were prescribed. So all the time, no rules and regulations was talked about in traditional grammar. So that is again a fallacy. Okay. So why they tell that it is a fallacy? Because now and then language is subject to change. So nobody can give this is a rule or this is a norms to be prescribed, and that is called as normative fallacy. And the next one is prescriptive fallacy. So again, traditional grammar, they just prescribe the rules of correct use. Okay, and according to the structural grammar, that is actually descriptive. They don't prescribe rules, they just describe the rules from actual use of language by native speakers. Okay, so this is actually in contrast to that of traditional grammarians. And the next one is logical fallacy. Logical fallacy meaning that traditional grammarians believe that all the languages have the same laws. Okay, I mean the laws are universally applicable to all languages, so which is not true. Okay, so when we are talking about tenses, English has only two tense, present tense and past tense, and we don't have future tense, it is actually future time. But when you are talking about Malayalam language, they have three tenses. Okay, so here itself you can find the variations, and that is why they are talking about logical fallacy here. Okay, logical fallacy is nothing but it is a false faith that all languages has laws universally applicable. Okay, and the next one is lack of explicitness. Lack of explicitness, I mean clarity is cannot be found in traditional grammarians. Okay, so I mean when we are talking about the linguistic description, no proper clarity is not given by the traditional grammarians. The next one is neglect of the spoken form. Traditional grammarians, they neglect the spoken form and give much importance to the written form. They tell that the spoken form is not correct. Okay, but whereas the structuralists give priority for primacy of speech. Okay, the next one is ignoring language variation. Language variation meaning that the dialect, slang, and I mean various other things that we have seen, no. So all these are regarded by the traditional grammarian as bad English. Okay, they stick only to the great literature. They think that only the great literature language is good English. Other type of languages, dialect, slang, and I mean many other things, no, those are counted as bad English. Okay, and the last one is historical fallacy. So historical fallacies is they ignore the linguistic changes. They don't believe in the constant renewal of languages. They only stick to the past masters like Dryden and Goldsmith, and they are the only models for the traditional grammarian. They totally ignore the linguistic changes that occur every year or every century.